Welcome to Satisfactory Update 8. My name is Nilaus and I'm on a quest to help you build better factories. In this video, I will be addressing a production dilemma that I'm sure we've all faced when building a factory, starting up a new factory and figuring out what is it going to be the inputs and outputs and how are we going to do it. So that's going to be the main purpose of this one, but it also serves as an opportunity for me to showcase some new crisp modular blueprints as part of what I do for Update 8. I'll be making modular blueprints that can build anything in the factory so that it becomes really easy to scale up factories in Satisfactory, which is something that's always been a challenge, but no longer thanks to these blueprints. Lastly, it also serves as an update on my Update 8 factory that I'm building over on Twitch, and I'll be making these videos showcasing the designs, showcasing or addressing different production dilemmas here on YouTube. So you can either watch here, you can come on over, you can watch both of them, of course. Remember, if you like these videos and want to see more, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It helps a lot with the visibility in a crowded space here on YouTube. In the previous video, which you can see a link to in the top right hand corner right now, we rushed to unlock tier 5 and 6 as well and made some quick plastic and rubber. This means we actually skipped some essential parts of tier 3 and 4, namely encased industrial beams, motors and heavy modular frames. Particularly the two first, encased industrial beams and motors, are heavily used for all the buildings for update 5 and 6, so you can't really build a refinery without having an abundance of industrial beams and motors. So we really have to sort of backtrack and make sure that we have factories addressing these challenges. Let's take a look at our motor build. I put up the machines here that are going to be needed because this is what we need to discuss and how we want to do it. So let's first make the entire supply chain for the motors. That means just in terms of machines, not in terms of the number of machines. Motors require rotor and stator. Stator is steel pipes and wire. And rotor is, if we use the alternate, steel pipe and wire. Hence we do that because that means the whole thing here only needs steel pipes and wire. Steel pipes and wire comes of course from steel ingots. Wires can come from different sources, but I'm going to just mark it as the default copper ingot. Steel pipes or steel ingots come from iron ingots and coal with solid steel ingots, alternate that I'm always using. And then of course iron comes from iron ingots and copper comes from copper ingots, or copper ingots come from copper ore. So that means if we really look at the very, very raw resources, then it's iron ore, coal and copper. So you now have the extreme choice on one end, is to say, do I want to build a factory that takes the raw materials in and then makes all of these things as part of the same factory in order to make the motors outbound? Now I would pretty much say no, don't do that, because then you are reserving a full or several full particularly coal deposits exclusive for this one, and you might want to share it a little bit because maybe you don't want as many motors. Also, you are going to have a lot of copper smelting, a lot of iron smelting, and a lot of steel smelting for general things. Then we could also say, okay, let's do the smelting and then have a factory that does everything from the ingots and onwards. If we do that, then we'd have to build wire or, well, actually, let's start with the other extreme end. The other extreme end from the raw materials in is the only make this part. So only put assemblers that make motors, and that means in order the input for the motor factory will be from the stator factory and from the rotor factory. That means in order for us to make a motor factory, we first have to make a rotor factory, and we have to make a stator factory, and we have to make a steel pipe factory, and we have to make a wire factory and a smelting and so on. So that means too many things in my opinion. So you have to find that balance between having one taking raw materials all the way through and just taking the last step of the process. Now in this case, I would say, well, rotors, we already built that in our starter hub and we can always pick it up for what we need it, so that's fine. Stators, I don't really need it for very much. We need it for the automatic wiring, which is only for elevator unlocks, and you need it for the batteries, which is kind of a finite thing that you just need and then build and then that's it. Then, so I would say you don't really need these two as separate factories, in my opinion. Then we could do steel pipes as a separate one, and we could do wire as a separate one. But I don't really like that because steel pipes, then you have to make a steel pipe and a steel beam factory. That means you pre-allocate your steel ingots to pipes and beams depending, and you don't really know how much you're going to need of each. So I would much rather say that we're going to have a factory that's making steel ingots, and then we'll allocate all of the coal and iron we needed to make a lot of steel ingots, and then we'll build the steel ingots, and then in whatever factory we want, we can make the ingots into either the beams or the pipes, depending on what we need. Likewise, in terms of wire can be coming from many different sources, and it can also, it's very inefficient to transport because it's low density to wires here, so you're going to need higher level belts and more belts to transport the same materials. So I'm going to say we want to have copper ingots, or if you want to do iron wire, then you can do iron ingots. So I'm going to have a factory, this is my decision now, I'm going to have a factory making copper ingots, I'm going to have a factory making steel ingots, then I'm going to have a factory that makes all of these things together so that it results the output, the input is steel ingots and copper ingots, and the output is motors. So we now decided on the structure of our factories. Now it's a matter of figuring out how we're going to make it, how big do we want to make it, and for that we turn to our blueprints. Here we have blueprints. These blueprints are some new generic blueprints that I have created, and they are available in our blueprint repository. There is a generic smelter blueprint with 8 smelters. There is a generic assembler build with 3 assemblers in. So those are new generic blueprints that I'm adding. I'm adding those to my blueprint book. You can see here, it continues to evolve. These are all available. So how do you get your grubby little mitts on my beautiful blueprints? Well, I am currently in the process of building these and designing them. So they're kind of, you could say, experimental mode, like Satisfactory is in experimental mode. So I'm going to give these as an early access perk to the patron supporter. So if you are a patron supporter, you can go to my Discord and you can find a link to a Google Drive that has all of these blueprints, and they'll be updated continuously as I come up with the improvements to it. Now, if you are not a patron, that is totally fine. You will get access to these when Satisfactory goes from experimental to early access. So you just have to wait a little bit, but you can first of all make them yourself based on me flying around like this and just seeing the idea of it. On top of that, of course, well, I want to give access to all of these, but I also don't want to have 1,000 people coming back with feedback. So I'm going to keep it for an early access perk for patrons. So thank you very much, patrons, for supporting the channel. Without you, this channel just wouldn't exist. It's that simple. So thank you very much for that. And now I have an opportunity to give a little bit back. So these are going to be the 2 generic blueprints that we're going to use. And as we're using these, we're going to be starting from this part. We are going to take a look at, I'm not going to set these up here, but the motor factory would produce, we can actually look here. So we are going to do things in pairs of 3. I could either do these 3 as 1 rotor, 1 stator, and 1 into 1, or technically into half because it's 2 to 1, half factory here. But I'd rather say I want a full pair of 3, a full module of rotors. So that means 15 rotors, 15 stators, and then just a half a module, or basically one full module of 3 assemblers, but working at half speed. So it means the whole thing is going to be designed towards 7.5 motors per minute. I think that's a pretty good amount. It's going to be generating a lot of stuff. And then we count backwards. That means 15 rotors, 15 stators. It means 75 steel pipes, and it means 210 wire. That means 112.5 steel ingots, and back here it is 105 copper. So now we know how big we sort of need to make it. Of course, I'm going to make the steel smelter and the copper smelter much bigger than that, because that's kind of they're going to be used for other things as well. So what we're going to do is now we know what we need to build in the factories, and we need to sort of know the sizes of it. Let's get over to our build area and start working on the first factory. Here we have the build area, and I've of course prepared it by making lights on top of it and also making sure that we have copper inbound. I have 2 mines of 240 inbound, so those are coming in on Mark 5 belts, Mark 3 belts, sorry. I mark this one as the corner where I need to position my blueprint. And now we come to my favorite part of factory building in update 8. Thanks to these awesome blueprints, we're going to simply put it together to figure out how much based on what we have input and what we are going to output. So I'm going to start by making a starter module. This is basically the shopping list. And then we're going to go into smelters, generic smelter, the new blueprint. I'm going to take 1 of those, and I'm going to take 2 of those. That means we can now consume 240 of each of the products. But when we get to the very, very end, we will actually be able to get a Mark 3 miner getting 600 inbound on the alloy belt, the Mark 5 belt. So if I just put in a template factory here, then I can actually just prepare it so I can have 3 modules later on and just alternate this one and do some mess up with pipes and stuff. And that should be pretty good. And then we'll put out into a storage, 2 big storage, because we're building way more than we need, and therefore we can also split it into different sources. That should be what we need. I will even go so far as to put it on a bus here. We can say 1 or 2, 3, and 4. Now we can build it really efficiently and quickly. We're going to try this. We're going to use the nudge feature to nudge it into the corner. There we go. That gets the starter built. Then we're going to get to the next one. I will switch to blueprint mode. 1 smelter, 2 smelter, then the empty module, and finally the end module. I mean, this could not be done any faster than that. How many seconds was that for building 480 copper smelting? Now, of course, we're not quite done. What we need to do is go inside, hook up belts, hook up electricity, and set the recipes. We're now inside the surface area, and we've set up the recipes, we hooked up the connection between each module with the power lines, and we hooked up the belts inside. And with that done, we can now start putting in 240 copper into each of the modules, into the 2 smelter modules. They will be getting started. We can hear them upstairs roaring into action, and we're going to go up here and we can look at the green ones. Yep, we're starting to see some green down the line. We're starting to see some green lights down the line, and we're seeing some nice beautiful puffs of smoke. We should be seeing the things come down here, and then we will hopefully soon get a little bit of each of these coming in. We'll just wait for a little bit and see. Come on, work. Here, where are you? Ah, okay, the first ones are coming in here, and these ones are already working. So there we go. They are coming in, and we are now getting copper. Good, we have copper in both locations. We can now continue with the steel build. Now it's time to get started on the steel builds. So we are going to do exactly the same. We go into our shopping list here. We go into factory modules. We're going to say we're always starting with the starter module, and then each of these steel smelting modules can consume 120 iron ore and coal. So we'll build 2 of these modules. Then we're going to be making it into a big box with 2 outputs, because it will produce 360 steel this module. So that's a pretty good module to build, and we're going to get here 240 iron, 240 coal, the other way around. And we are then going to get into the bestest part. This will be number 1, and this will be number 2, and this will be number, well, let's call it something else. 3 to 4. There we go. Cool. So that's all there is to it, and we can then start making it. And I'm going to get a little bit closer and then just nudge it the rest of the way. There, that looks good. We got it. Blueprint number 2, switch to blueprint mode. That one's there, that one's there. We could build more if we wanted to, but I'm pretty happy with this size right now. So we're going to make it and just a final build here. There we go. That is now our 360 steel output, and as usual, as we did before, we're going to hook it up and then get ready for enabling it. Again, we're inside now the steel power plant here, or the steel factory, and we are going to be reiterating, once you stamp down these modules, you have to set the recipes of the machines, and you have to connect the belts inside, and you have to connect the power. So once you've done all those 3 things, it is just a matter of getting the inputs in here. And then we can hope that I've done it correctly. The coal goes on the lower one, goes all the way out. And the iron goes smoothly down here. And we're going to get 360 in. So the last part of the belt, I have used Mark IV belts, just so that we can get that done. They're a little bit more expensive, but they will get done. We can see that things are working. Oh, right, it's this one that's working. But you're getting into here, we're getting the iron ingots, and if we just get the second iron ingot, there we go. So we're starting to see that the foundries are also working, and we will now, down here, getting some glorious steel ingots inbound, which we'll just be highlighting here. Steel ingots coming in, that one, and copy and paste. Good. Is it inbound? Yes. Steel ingots inbound, steel ingots inbound. Brilliant. Now, all we need to do is go upstairs, because I have decided that the lower floor is for basic components like smelting, for example. And then we go up here, and this will be for more advanced stuff like assemblers and, yeah, just more generic things, but no refineries, because there's no room for refineries up here. Refineries will be on the next floor, which is in an upcoming episode. So, of course, make sure you stay tuned. Here we have some inbounds in here, and we are now going to be preparing to build the next factory. So we're now ready to build, and if we have a look at this, then you can see that we have implemented some, well, underfloor belts here, and that's a way for me to get stuff up. I'm going to get it somewhere up from somewhere over here, and then I'm going to bring it in here under the floors so it comes up directly inside our factory. That's pretty neat, and it's going to be interesting to see if we can sustain it when there's going to be more business. But we'll leave this open so we can look down on this flowing pipe here. Now, let's take a look at what we want to build. We're going to our shopping list. The best part, I would say, is that we start with the start module. Then we're going to get a generic constructor for steel pipes. Then we get another constructor for copper wire. Then we're going to get rotors, stators, motors, and then we're just going to have a single output box. That's it. So then let's also just get it onto here. 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the belt. Cool, let's get started on building it. So usual first, we do the alignment and we nudge it into place so that we are sure that it fits. Yep, that's good. Get to blueprint number 2. We switch to blueprint number 2 and we switch to blueprint mode. So that's going to be here, 1, 2, that's each of these, and then the assembler builds 1, 2, 3. Look at that, how crazy that is. And now comes a funny thing. I can't build it. Why not? Because that thing is there. That's just a little bit, it's a little bit too close, but we have also found out that it's actually not a big deal because I can't just replace it afterwards again. So we just take it here and then we nudge it into place so that it fits with the other ones and connect it back up to there. So everything is re-established. It's all good. Now, all we need to do now is the usual stuff. Set this one up to, where are you? Where are you? There we go. Set it up to recipes, power lines, and belts. Again, standing here on the inside, and we're now ready to hook it up. We are going to start with the copper, bypassing the first module, the coal coming into the first module, the steel coming into the first module. Steel goes in here and becomes steel pipes. Copper is rushing forward and to become copper wire, and we're going to go take the door and just jump up. Of course, for these episodes, I am in complete fly mode because it's so much easier to see what the hell's going on. But when I'm playing on Twitch, I am not in fly mode, rarely at least. And here we are. We're getting in the steel ingots. They are working, and you can see that I've set them to 50%. And over on the next modules here, that is the copper ingots. Copper ingots are getting going, and copper ingots are now, well, once the two of them will go in, they will go into the rotors here, and they'll go into the stators, and then finally they will go into the motors. Let's see if everything is connected correctly. Now we can see the whole thing is working, everything is online, and well, they just flicker on and off once in a while, but they will need to, when they fall down, then they need a little bit more than one to get started again. This one is working, it's good, and if we look over in our box, we are starting to get the first one, only 10, but it's something. So what we've done now is we have built a factory here that makes 7.5 motors per minute. That's really nice. On top of that, we also have a steel ingot factory and we have a copper ingot factory, and both of those have excess capacity. That means we can take the excess steel ingots and put them into an encased industrial beam factory. We can take the excess copper and put that into a circuit build. So those are things that will definitely need to be done. But in terms of this part, you know how to do it now, because it's a matter of figuring out the recipes you want, figuring out the ratios you want, figuring out the modules, stamping down the modules, connect the modules, and there we go. Then we have the factory. So we don't need to do that as well in this episode. I think that this has proven the point of both the modules. You can see now we have smelter modules and assembler modules added to our blueprint repository. So if you are a patron supporter, you already have access to these right now in this experimental test mode. But also if you are not as a patron, then you will get access to it soon enough, as soon as Satisfactory Update 8 is no longer in experimental mode and goes to early access, probably a bit after the summer. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, be sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more Satisfactory videos. I hope these are interesting to you. Also, come on over to Twitch, where we are streaming this series and coming up with new designs together in the community, and that is very, very enjoyable. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care, and as always, stay effective.